My name is Brad Jadarski. I'm the Oshkosh West Activities Coordinator, and I want to welcome you to the 2023-2024 school year. I will be your narrator as I guide you through this year's Co-Curricular Handbook online presentation. Remember, competing in athletics is a privilege. It is not a right. You are a student athlete and academics come first. You must do the job in the classroom or you will not be able to perform on the playing field, court, or other areas. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department has a vision statement. It is to educate, inspire, and shape the next generation of leaders through commitment, competition, and service to the team, our school, and our community. The Oshkosh West has a number of core values that help guide all the decisions we make for the athletic department. These core values are: 1, do the right thing. Have integrity and honesty in thoughts, actions, and words. 2, strive for greatness. Excellence in academics, athletics, and character. 3, lead with a purpose. Have a selfless commitment to team goals. 4, promote the Wildcat culture. Have pride in yourself, team, and school. And 5, raise the bar. Inspire others to be their best. At Oshkosh West High School, we are very fortunate to have an outstanding athletic training program sponsored by Ascension Health System. On the screen, you will see the names of our 3 athletic trainers along with their cell phone number and email address. They are here to serve our student athletes and their parents in anything related to athletic training needs. We thank Ascension for being such a great partner. As I mentioned, Oshkosh West has 3 licensed athletic trainers that are available for usage during and after school. Our athletic training room hours are daily from 3 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday when we have school days. And the athletic trainers work under the direction and in collaboration with physicians and other healthcare professionals. Their role is to evaluate and treat injuries and provide rehab to those that are injured. They provide immediate care in the event of a game injury. And as needed, they will provide physician referral if necessary and will communicate with the parents and coaching staff about this process. One of the main areas our athletic trainers deal with in a number of our sports is in regards to concussion management. A concussion is a brain injury, and all concussions are serious. Concussions can be serious injuries with fatal consequences if not evaluated and treated properly. All concussions require an assessment and individualized treatment recommendations. Concussions can occur in any sport. They can be caused by a direct blow to the head or an injury to the body resulting in an indirect force to the head. Any suspected concussion should be referred to the trainers. Concussions are a traumatic brain injury that impairs the brain's ability to carry out normal functions. There are many varied symptoms that can describe a concussion, and not all are visible. Some of those include headaches, dizziness, confusion, nausea, light and sound sensitivity, difficulty concentrating, memory loss, feeling slowed down, and personality changes are all possible indicators of a head injury. The licensed athletic trainers will perform pre-season neurocognitive concussion testing to get a baseline of the athlete's neurological function. All freshmen and juniors will be tested, and anyone who didn't take the test last year or who is new to the school will be tested. Should the athlete sustain a suspected concussion, this pre-evaluation can be utilized by a physician to help determine the proper course of treatment for a return to play. Only contact sports are tested. Any non-contact sport athlete may be tested upon request of the trainers. Non-impact sports are swimming, cross country, tennis, track, and golf. Parents and the coaching staff will be contacted in the case of a suspected concussion. Parents will be directly notified and an informational sheet will be sent home. Athletes should be seen as soon as possible by the athletic trainer, then referred to a physician for further evaluation. All athletes will be kept out of all practices and activities while presenting any symptoms. They will see the licensed athletic trainers daily to track symptoms. When the athlete is asymptomatic, the parent will need a physician's clearance for the return to play or practice. Once cleared by the physician, the trainers will run the athlete through a gradual return to play protocol. This process involves reintroduction of simple cardio, progressing to longer durations of cardio, to strength training, to limited practice conditions, a full practice, and then full return to practice and play. Please keep in mind, if an athlete has a concussion, it will take some time before they are able to return to full play status. Coaches are instructed to use the following procedure with student athletes and concussions. When in doubt, sit them out. Parents and athletes are required to turn in a signed concussion information sheet once per school year before they can participate in any sport. This is done online through our Infinite Campus protocol. Additional information on concussions can be found at the WIAA website below. Also, parents, the WIAA provides concussion insurance for all member schools. This insurance is secondary to a family's primary insurance. Information is available regarding this secondary insurance by contacting one of our athletic trainers. As student athletes, it's very, very important to inform our trainers and coaches of any pre-existing medical condition. Examples would be diabetes, asthma, allergy, or other allergic reactions, a heart condition, or any condition that could impact the athlete's personal safety during play. If an athlete carries an inhaler or an EpiPen, make sure the coaching staff and the teammates are made aware of this and where to find it in case of an emergency. Proper hydration is extremely important by student athletes throughout the year. Athletes should consume at least 16 to 20 ounces of water 2 hours before practice and at least 8 ounces in the 15 minutes prior to practice beginning. Athletes should regularly consume water during breaks in practice, even if they do not feel thirsty. Feeling thirsty is not a proper measure of hydration. 48 hours or roughly 2 normal bottles of water can be taken in during the course of an hour of strenuous practice. After exercise, for every pound of water lost, athletes need to ingest 16 to 20 ounces of water. That is 1 bottle of water for every pound lost. Please note, this does not include the normal 6 to 8 bottles of water a person should drink normally throughout the day. Some additional health information for student athletes. In order to be able to participate in athletics, medical clearance is required. For this school year, physicals on or after April 1 of 2022 or later are valid for this school year. Parents of student athletes also need to be aware of the WIAA banned substance list that is found in the appendix of the Co-Curricular Handbook. Please note, a student athlete using any substance that is listed as banned on that list is a violation of the district's code of conduct. The only exception would be if a student is required to take that substance prescribed by a medical professional. At this point in time in the video, I'm going to ask you to reference the Oshkosh Area School District Co-Curricular Handbook. As a parent and student athlete, you are responsible for all the material found within the handbook. If you ever have a question about anything, please feel free to reach out to me, as I'm here to help at any time. The first item I want to talk about is in regards to the WIAA, which is our state governing body. The website address is found on this particular slide for the WIAA. Again, as a member school and as a student athlete, we are responsible for following all of the rules that the WIAA has established. If you ever have a question, you can search the WIA website for additional information, or please reach out to me as I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. We're going to start on pages 5 to 6 of the OESD Co-Curricular Handbook and talk about all of the applicable things a student athlete needs to take care of in order to be eligible to participate in athletics. One is a student athlete will have to turn in a valid physical, which is medical clearance. As I mentioned before, a valid physical for this school year is a physical dated April 1 of 2022 or more current. We need the medical eligibility form, which is page 4 from the WI physical form that can be downloaded on our website. If your physical that was signed by a doctor was from April 1 of 2022 to March 31st of 2023, we're also going to need the information found on the WIAA alternate year card, which is just parental clearance. And that is a form that has 3 separate forms listed on the page. We only need the information one time if your physical falls in that specific date range. And please note, you can download that form as well from the school district's website. We're also going to need an agreement of parent and athlete and insurance waiver form. Payment of the athletic fee if applicable. If you participate in the district's free or reduced meals program, you are not required to pay the athletic fee. We're going to need completion of the athletic emergency form, a signed concussion and cardiac arrest acknowledgement form by both the parent and student athlete. Please note, all of these forms are available through Infinite Campus. The district requires all parents and student athletes to register online for athletics through Infinite Campus. The process starts with the parent. The parent electronically signs all of the forms. And then once that is done, the student athlete goes into their Infinite Campus account under their Documents tab and electronically signs all of their forms. Please note, this is required to be done before an athlete can begin practice. And note, you'll need to do this once for each sport that you participate in this year, meaning if you do 2 sports, you'll have to go through this process 2 times. The district has an athletic fee for this school year. The fee is $50 per sport, $100 individual limit per school year, and $175 family limit per school year. Please note, the district's athletic fee is waived if requested by the parent and if you are participating in the district's free and reduced meals program. You can take care of that by indicating so when you register for each sport through the Infinite Campus athletic registration process. At this time, I'm going to refer you to pages 8 through 10, which is going to talk about our academic requirements to be a student athlete. First, you must be a full-time student, where the school, meaning Oshkosh West, is responsible for programming 100% of your school day. As a student, you must be eligible for like or similar awards, privileges, and services as all other students and meet all obligation and responsibilities as other students without exception. Basically, you need to be a full-time student. We are a no F school, which means you can have no failing classes or grades in any grade reporting period in order to be eligible to participate in athletics. We use the 7-week grades of first semester grades, the 7-week grades of second semester grades. Parents and students, it's very important to know that the 7-week grade check of each semester is referred to as a progress report, but for athletic and activity participation, it is an academic grade check. Therefore, whatever grade is found at that time will determine your athletic eligibility. For fall student athletes, the academic and eligibility period is a little different than winter and spring. Also note, all incoming freshmen start their high school academic career academically eligible. So for freshmen, your first grade check is the 7-week mark of first semester. For all sophomores through seniors, we will be looking at your first semester grades if you participate in a fall sport, or whatever grade reporting period is applicable to the winter and spring seasons. Please note, for fall sports, if you have one failing grade, you are ineligible to participate in 10% of the scheduled games or meets in a sport, rounded up if 10% results in a fraction. Note, if you have more than one failing grade, the student will be ineligible for the lesser of 21 consecutive calendar days, beginning with the date of earliest allowed competition in a sport, or 1/3 of the maximum number of games or meets allowed in a sport, rounded up if 1/3 results in a fraction. So that is the fall academic requirements for student athletes. If you're a winter, spring athlete, or a fall athlete that has grade check after 7 weeks and your fall season is still going on, we use the following policy. If you have one failing grade, the student is out for 7 consecutive school days and nights. The student may return to competition on the 8th school day, provided the student received at least a 2.5 grade point average in the most recent grade reporting period. If that is not the case, the student will do weekly grade checks. In order to become academically eligible, the student must be passing the class they received the failing mark in at the grade check period. Once the student is passing that class, they are no longer academically ineligible. For students that have more than one failing grade, he or she may not participate in competitions for a minimum of 15 consecutive school dates and nights. On the 16th school day, the student may resume participation provided they are passing each of the classes the student was failing at grade check. If not, the student will be doing weekly grade checks, and they will have to show passing in each class until they are passing in that class. Again, the moral of the story is, student athletes, do the job in the classroom first and foremost, or you will not be eligible to participate in athletic events. Note, when a student athlete is academically ineligible, they are still allowed to practice, assuming permission is granted from their coach. Next, I'd like you to refer to pages 10 to 12 of the Co-Curricular Handbook. I want to talk about a couple of items in particular. In regards to illness, a student must be present at all classes on the day of a practice or competition or performance to be eligible to participate. Only permission from school administration will permit a student to compete after missing classes. Such examples of excused reasons would be attendance at a funeral, a doctor, dentist, or other medical health care provider appointment, an absence that is related to a classroom grade, such as a field trip. Students may not participate in any competition or practice if they are out ill for any or all of the school day without permission from school administration. Please note, if a student is not feeling well in the morning and they contact school administration ahead of time, we at times will grant permission for the student to participate that day if they're able to get to school for the remainder or the second half of the school day. We will only consider that if contacted in the morning by the student and or parent. Please note, students, if you go home for the second half of the school day for being ill, you will not be allowed to practice or compete that evening. Out-of-town travel. A student who travels to an out-of-town contest with the school team must return with the team. The only exception to this rule is if a student's parent is present at the out-of-town site, he or she may request that the student returns with the parent. This request must be made in person by the parent to the coach, and the parent will also have to sign off that they are taking their child. Each coach will have a copy of the district transportation form with them for all events. Please note, the coach has the option whether or not to grant participation or permission to leave with the parent. Okay, again, as a parent, you can request to take your child and your child only, and you must be the parent or legal guardian. We do have an update to that this year, and here is the exception. If the student is asking to leave early to attend another district-sponsored activity, the student will be allowed to leave with the parent or guardian without consequence. So that is something new. If again, the request to leave is as a result to attend another district-sponsored activity. Regarding vacation, on page 12, at the discretion of each coach or advisor, when a student is absent due to being on vacation with his or her family, upon returning to the team, the student will not be allowed to participate in competitions equal to one half of the number of competitions missed. If the student is absent due to being on vacation with someone other than his or her family, the student will not be allowed to participate in whatever number of competitions were missed. One competition for each competition missed. Note, if a student misses only practices but not competitions due to being on vacation with either family or friends, this may impact playing time for the student upon his or her return from vacation. Students and their parents are encouraged to speak with their coach as soon as possible if they will miss any part of their season. Again, make that communication as soon as possible. The other item I want to talk about on page 12 is for multiple participation. We have an update. A student desiring to compete in more than one activity, sport, during the same season will be allowed to do so only if permission is granted by both coaches and the activities coordinator. It will be up to the student and coaches involved to work out a schedule for practices and competitions. If a written agreement cannot be reached by everyone involved, the student will be allowed to compete in only one activity that season and will have to choose the activity he or she wants to participate in. If a written agreement exists, the expectation will be that the student abides by the agreement. Failure to do so can or will result in the student being unable to participate in the activity listed as secondary when a conflict exists. Basically, if you want to do two sports at the same time and both coaches agree it, and we have a written plan in place, if you choose to not follow that written plan, you will not be allowed to participate potentially in one or both activities. Regarding in-district transportation, the district does not provide transportation for students to any practice sites and some home competition sites. In these situations, it is the responsibility of the student and or legal guardian to provide their own transportation. On page 13, regarding the use of cameras and recording devices in locker rooms. Video recording devices of any type may be used in the locker room provided that no students are present in the locker room when the recording device is being used. Video recording devices may be used for school projects involving video production or other video or pictorial presentation by students, provided that a staff member verifies prior to allowing such equipment in a locker room that no student is using the locker room to change and thus could be caught in an exposed condition. The staff member must notify anyone inside the locker room that a recording device will be brought in and the purpose of the device with sufficient warning to allow any occupants to depart the locker room. Court surveillance video may be used to investigate suspected illegal behavior or behavior by students that violate school rules. To provide or protect the privacy of students, non-staff access to locker rooms for the purpose of interviewing or seeking information from any student is prohibited. No image or images of a nude or partially nude person in the locker room may be captured, recorded, or transferred under any circumstance by any individual. Please keep that in mind. We also know that club athletic participation is very popular with many of our high school students, and we want to provide guidance for students and parents regarding club athletic participation during the high school year and or seasons. Note the district has a stance on that, and there is a difference between varsity athletes and non-varsity athletes. Regarding non-varsity athletes, if a student is on a JV or freshman high school team, students will be allowed to participate in club athletic programs during their JV or freshman high school season with the following stipulations. One, The student and parent need to inform the coach about their intentions as soon as possible, ideally prior to the conflict or overlap taking place. 2, students will not be allowed to miss a high school scheduled practice or competition for a club athletic practice or competition. For varsity athletes, if a student is on a varsity high school team, the head coach will determine whether or not students will be allowed to practice or participate in a club athletic program during their varsity high school season. If a coach's position is no club athletic participation during the varsity high school season, it is based on the premise that a student's loyalty and allegiance should be to the high school team. Again, the key for either case for varsity or non-varsity athletes is having a conversation with your coach as early as possible regarding the potential club participation coinciding during the same time as the high school athletic season. Also, the WIA has a rule regarding non-school participation. It is the philosophy of the WIA that a student owes loyalty and allegiance to a school team of which he or she is a member during the season of a given sport. Athletes may compete in not more than 2 non-school competitions with school approval during each regular sports season. The contest will not count against the individual maximum for the athlete. Non-school competition will not be allowed during the respective WIA tournament series in a sport. A student becomes ineligible in a sport for the remainder of the season for not receiving school approval beforehand and or competing in more than 2 non-school games or meets or contests in the same sport during the season of practice and competition established by the school. Please note, therefore, if you have a desire to compete in a non-school sponsored sport that is the same sport during the high school season, you must get approval from your coach and the school ahead of time. Again, please be proactive and contact the school and or activities coordinator ahead of time. At this time, we're going to talk a little bit about the district's code of conduct, which is found in the OAST Co-Curricular Handbook. This is really the nuts and bolts of the handbook, and this is in regards to behavior that student athletes, if they choose to violate specific areas, would have a consequence for that type of behavior. Please open your handbook to page 15. You'll see the section entitled Code of Conduct. I want to note a student must refrain from any conduct at any time that would reflect unfavorably on himself, herself, or the school. Conduct which would reflect unfavorably on a student or on the school includes, but is not limited to, the following. And you'll see items labeled A all the way through S. It's important that you read each and every section so that you're aware of them. I want to point out some in particular. First is item A, use, possession, buying or selling of controlled substances, street drugs, illegal drugs, and or performance enhancing substances, meaning only those listed as banned by the WIAA, and drug paraphernalia, including sale, possession, or use. B, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages. C, use, possession, or purchase of tobacco in any form. Use of tobacco means to chew or possess any substance containing tobacco, including smokeless tobacco, in the mouth to derive the effects of tobacco, as well as all uses of tobacco, including cigars, cigarettes, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, snuff, any other matter or substance that contains tobacco, in addition to papers used to roll cigarettes and or the smoking of electronic, vapor, or other substitute forms of cigarettes, clove cigarettes, and any other lighted smoking devices for burning tobacco or any other use. Letter F, criminal offense or a violation of a state statute or city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart. Letter I, knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. In situations where it is noticeably apparent to law enforcement that alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia are present, the district's determination will be that the student was knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia. Students may be present at an establishment which is primarily for eating and may be present at a ceremony type activity such as a wedding reception. Students may only be present at a bar or tavern if they are with their parents. Letter N. Behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. This is a very broad statement, but could include many things, such as, is the behavior considered or likely to be illegal? Is the student being a disruption at school and as such is removed from school through either an in-school or out-of-school suspension? Those are just some examples. Letter P, illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and/or electronic devices. Any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment is unacceptable. This includes, but is not limited to, the consumption of alcohol or the use of illicit drugs or facsimiles, inappropriate sexually oriented material, or activities involving bullying, hazing, or harassment. Stuff you post on social media or the use of your cell phone, that behavior, if it ends up on a school official's desk, you can and very well would be held accountable for that material. Letter Q, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, another entity, or organization. Letter R, hosting a party. Any person who has a gathering at his or her home, property, or personal property, such as a car, boat, camper, campsite, etc., where alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or drug paraphernalia are permitted by such person to be used and/or brought into the home, property, or personal property, may be given a penalty at a higher level. Administrative discretion will determine the length of a penalty. And letter S, supplying, bringing alcohol or drugs. Any person who brings, supplies alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or drug paraphernalia to another person or persons may be given a penalty at a higher level. Administrative discretion will determine the length of the penalty. In the event another individual engages in this behavior on behalf of the athlete, there will be a presumption that the other individual acted as an agent of the athlete, and the athlete will receive the same punishment as if the athlete had been the supplier. Again, students, as young adults, you have many choices that you'll be confronted with. Bad choices can result in consequence. Therefore, we ask that you make good choices. If you find yourself in a position where something bad is going to happen or may happen, we strongly encourage you to leave that situation. Call a friend, call a family member, have you come picked up, send a text letting them know you want to leave. If that happens, don't be afraid to come forward and talk to us about what happened. Show us that text message. Show us that call you made so that we can talk to the individual to see that you made every effort possible to leave the situation. There is no amount of time where being at a party or around other illegal drugs or activities that would be considered violation of the co-curricular handbook, code of conduct, can be given. Basically, we cannot tell you if you're there 1 minute, 10 minutes, or 20 minutes if it's too much. If you know something bad is happening or going to happen, leave. Make that good choice. Regarding a complaint, violations of the co-curricular code of conduct should be referred to the appropriate high school activities coordinator. Students and parents are strongly encouraged to use the self-referral policy, which will be referenced later in this handbook. Other complaints referrals concerning a code violation shall be made in writing and signed by the complainant and/or by a law enforcement report and/or by a published written account and/or by other factual, credible means to the activities coordinator. Note, student administration or school administration, will consider statements made by students to law enforcement officials which are verbally shared with school administration and/or are found in a written law enforcement report as factual and truthful statements. If a student, upon questioning by a school official, recants on such statements made to a law enforcement official, the district's position will be that the statements made to the law enforcement official were truthful, and as such, it will be up to the student to convince school administration otherwise. Any student in this situation who makes a statement to a law enforcement official which is determined to violate the district's code of conduct will be ineligible for competition until otherwise determined eligible by school administration. The next section I want to talk about are the guidelines for penalties found on pages 17 to 27. Please note on page 18, when a violation occurs, the suspension will be served in a WIAA sport in which the student participated in last year or the next WIAA sport in which the student participates. A student who participates in a WIAA sport and receives a code of conduct or behavioral offense suspension must serve the suspension in a WIAA sport. In the case of serving a suspension in the next WIAA sport and/or activity a student participates in, permission from both the activities coordinator and head coach or advisor of the new WIAA sport and/or activity must be given. Also, a student may not join a sport to serve a suspension after the first scheduled contest in that sport has taken place. Also, the student must complete that season in good standing as outlined by both the activities coordinator and head coach or advisor for the suspension to be served. Failure to meet the in good standing requirement results in the student not receiving any credit for time served and having to serve the entire suspension again in the next WIAA sport and/or activity in which the student participates. Students in all WIAA sports and dance team members who break the code of conduct outside their season will begin a penalty from the first date of their next sports season or dance. When a suspension results in a fraction of a game, the number shall be rounded up to the next whole number of games. For example, 2.1 or 2.8 games for a suspension equals 3 games. On page 19, for students that participate in simultaneous categories, students may participate in simultaneous activities. However, if a student incurs a violation, he or she shall be penalized according to the code for each activity if any or all activity seasons are taking place simultaneously. So, on pages 19 through 20, you'll see items numbered 1 through 7. Any violations in those areas without a self-referral result in the penalties found on pages 20 through 21. Note, for first events, suspensions are for up to 25% of the regular season. The student must also complete a student assistant program or similar approved educational program in order to be reinstated. Note, we have a different suspension for first-time offenders in the area of knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and drug paraphernalia. We also have a different penalty for second-time offenders in the area. It's numbered 1 through 9 above, without any first-time violation in areas 1 through 9 above, which is knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and/or drug paraphernalia. On page 21, second violations in the areas previously mentioned are suspension for an entire season. Third violation, suspension for 1 full school year. Fourth violation, the student loses the privilege to participate in all co-curricular activities during the remainder of his or her academic career in the district. On page 21 through 22, it talks about the self-referral and the honesty referral option. A self-referral. If a student presents himself or herself to the activities coordinator as a person who has violated the code of conduct in the areas numbered 1 to 5, which we'll mention as follows, the student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the student must self-admit no later than the first day after the violation has occurred and the information cannot already be shared with school administration from another source. Note, administration may grant an extension to the 1 school day provision due to extenuating circumstances. Students and/or parents are strongly encouraged to self-report violations of the code during the summer months to the activities coordinator as soon as possible. Meaning, students, if you break the code or make a mistake, we understand we all make mistakes. Use the self-referral option as there can be a reduction in consequence. An honesty referral was a little different than a self-referral, and that is where a student, upon first questioning by the activities coordinator or other school administrator, provides truthful information about committing a code of conduct violation in the areas numbered 1 to 5 below, which we'll reference shortly. That student will have his or her penalty reduced. For this to occur, the school must be conducting an investigation and not have had a law enforcement report and or published written account and or other factual credible means confirming the student had committed a code of conduct violation. In this particular case, a student did not come forward on their own, but we were made aware of a possible violation without having written reports of that, and we question a student about their involvement, and they are honest. That is considered an honesty policy. So, self-referral and honesty policy referrals in the areas of use, possession, buying, or selling of controlled substances, street drugs, illegal drugs, and or performance-enhancing substances, drug paraphernalia, including sale, possession, or use, or in use, possession, or purchase of tobacco in any form, with the same definition of tobacco as previously mentioned. 3, use, possession, or purchase of alcoholic beverages. 4, knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. And 5, acts of vandalism. For those types of offenses, if a student uses a self-referral or honesty referral, first violations for those offenses could be suspension for 12.5% of the regular season or the equivalent of the regular season. The student must also complete a student assistant program or similar approved educational program in order to be reinstated. Note, there's also information for first-time offenders and second-time offenders that are knowingly in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia, meaning you are not using, consuming, or possessing, but you are knowingly in the presence. That is still a violation of the district's code of conduct. You'll see with educational classes, there is a reduction in penalty from the 12.5%. Second violations for those previously mentioned categories with a self-referral or honesty referral. For a second violation is suspension for 50% of a regular season with the following requirements. 1, a 20-hour community service plan. And 2, meeting with the high school's social worker and or district's ATODA coordinator and following through with any recommended course of action. The program must be successfully completed prior to eligibility being reinstated, or prior arrangements must be made with the activity coordinator. Third violations, suspension for 1 full school year. Fourth violations, the student loses the privilege to participate for the remainder of his or her academic career. Again, those penalties are for self-referral violations or violations of the code where the self-referral violation is used. Penalties for violations of the code where the honesty referral is used are found on the bottom of page 24 through 26. First violation, a suspension for 16.6% of the regular season, and the student must also complete a student assistance program or similar approved educational program in order to be reinstated. Note, we also have different penalties for first time or second time offenders in the area of knowingly being in the presence of alcohol, illegal drugs, and or drug paraphernalia. Second violations with an honesty referral, suspension for 60% of the regular season with the following requirements. 1, a 25-hour community service plan. And 2, meeting with the high school social worker and or district's ATODA coordinator and following through with any recommended course of action. The program must be successfully completed prior to co-curricular eligibility being reinstated. Third violations with an honesty referral, suspension for 1 full school year. Fourth violations, the student loses the ability to participate in all co-curriculars during the remainder of his or her academic career. Note, on page 26 and 27 are violations of the Code of Conduct, which are considered to be cumulative within themselves only, meaning a first violation in alcohol and a first violation in, let's say, number 10, which is a criminal offense or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, wouldn't result in a step 2 consequence. They are cumulative within themselves only. Those violations are, as I mentioned, 10, criminal offense or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart. The significance of the violation will be evaluated, and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Note the following WA rule. Any student charged and or convicted of a felony shall, upon the filing of felony charges, become ineligible for all further participation until the student has paid his or her debt to society and the courts considered the sentence served, including probation and or community service. Note the following OESD rule could apply in addition to the WA rule. If a student is charged with a felony, the student could lose the right to participate in athletics, activities, and or clubs for the remainder of their high school career. If a student uses the self-referral and or honesty referral outlined previously in this handbook, the student's suspension may be reduced depending on the severity of the offense for first or second violations only and excludes all felony charges. Number 11, physical violence or threatening violence against another individual, the school, and or another entity. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. However, the suspension will be for a minimum of 12.5% of the season. Acts of harassment, including hazing. Please refer to the district's policy. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the penalty will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Violation of school rules as defined in the school planner. On page 27, number 14, recruitment of student athletes is the position of the OESD activities departments that students respect other students' attendance boundaries. The recruitment of students to attend the other public school is not acceptable. If you are being recruited to attend the other public school in Oshkosh, you must inform your school's activities coordinator immediately. Number 15, illegal or inappropriate use of the internet and or electronic devices, including any posting or communication via social networking websites which disrupts either the educational or athletic environment, is unacceptable. You'll also find on pages 27 to 28 areas which are referred to as behavioral offenses. They are considered offenses or violations of the district's co-curricular code of conduct, but are not as serious as some of the other ones previously identified. Please be familiar on pages 27 and 28, items number 1 through 8. I want to talk about a few in particular. Number 4, acts of truancy. A student participating in activities might not be permitted to participate in the next scheduled contest whenever the student is deemed truant as defined by school policy unless administration grants permission to participate. Number 5, behavior or conduct which reflects unfavorably on a student. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. As I mentioned before, is some behavior considered illegal or completely inappropriate? Is it considered hazing? Are you receiving an in-school or out-of-school suspension? All of those things could and would be a violation of the district's code of conduct. Cheating, number 6. First offense. The teacher involved will handle the situation in the classroom and will make contact with the activities coordinator. Second offense during one's high school career and any additional offense. The student will be referred to the activities coordinator for a behavioral offense or code of conduct violation. The significance of the violation will be evaluated and the suspension will be determined based on the severity of the offense. Note, for any first offense in cheating found to be especially serious, administration reserves the right to invoke a second offense consequence. Again, students, if you are unclear what your class's expectations are regarding group work, sharing assignments, or submitting shared papers, please be sure to talk with your teacher ahead of time so you're crystal clear regarding any potential cheating violation. And also number 8, a student in good standing. Basically, you adhere to your high school code of conduct for students, and you adhere to your high school attendance and tardy policies. Again, students, each and every one of you was given the ability to think. Therefore, remember, every consequence or choice you make has a potential consequence. Please be aware of it, and we encourage you to make good choices. You only get 4 years to wear your high school uniform or represent your school. Make the most of it. If and when you make a mistake, do the right thing. Use the self-referral policy, or if questioned, the honesty policy. Remember, we are all human. We all make mistakes. Almost all of you carry a cell phone. Use that as a tool to get you out of a jam rather than a tool that's going to get you in a jam. And again, we are reasonable people. If you feel like you did nothing wrong, but we're in a position where something bad happened, don't be afraid to come forward and tell us what happened, as we are reasonable people. We will gladly listen to what you have to say and do whatever we can to verify the facts regarding the situation you are involved with. Also on pages 28 through 30 are 2 items I want to talk about. The first being on page 28 regarding the WIA tournament series. Note, the minimum penalty for code of conduct violations or any behavioral offense that results in a student athlete being suspended for any portion of WIA tournament competition is immediate disqualification of the student athlete for the remainder of the total tournament series in that sport. Keep that in mind. Also, on pages 29 and 30 is information regarding the district's appeal process, meaning if the district finds you to be in violation of their code of conduct, you have the ability to appeal. Note, when a possible code violation comes to the attention of administration, it will be acted upon in accordance with the guidelines specified in the OASD Co-Curricular Handbook. If a ruling of ineligibility results, the student and or their parents may formally appeal the decision in writing to the activities coordinator, provided an appeal is received within 10 days after notification is sent. Note, appeals may be filed only in reference to whether there was a code violation or not. An appeal may not be filed to change a consequence. Number 3, within a maximum of 5 school days after an appeal has been received, a date and time for an appeal will be established by the activities coordinator. At the appeal conference, the student will have an opportunity to provide their side of the story, the school will provide their side of the story, and at the conclusion of the conference, a decision will be made by the appeal committee and presented to the students and or parents. The appeal committee will either uphold or abolish the co-curricular code suspension. While the appeal process is occurring, the penalty for the violation will remain in effect. Please note, the decision of the appeal committee will be final and binding. Again, just remember, every decision you make has the ability to have a consequence. And I just want to close with this, something mentioned on page 15. All situations involving possible violations of the code of conduct, in all of those situations, administrative discretion will determine whether or not there is an actual violation of the code of conduct. And again, if a violation is found to be made, students have and parents have the ability to file an appeal, as was previously mentioned. The next section of the district co-curricular handbook that I want to talk about will be found on pages 30 to 32, and we're going to talk first about awards in all conference. Note, there are 2 types of awards presented to students. The first are participation awards. The second are achievement awards. Regarding participation awards, they are numerals, mascots, junior participation, and or varsity letters for seniors who have participated in the same sport for at least 3 seasons. Achievement awards are varsity letter awards as determined by the coach through predetermined criteria. Note, to qualify for an award, the student may not be suspended for any alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance enhancing substances, vandalism, criminal offense, or violation of a city, county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, or other serious offense considered unbecoming of a student athlete. If an athlete self-refers to the activities coordinator for a first-time offense in the area of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance enhancing substances, vandalism, and possibly criminal offense or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, that student may be eligible to receive any school award earned during that season once all obligations concerning the violation have been fulfilled. A reminder that for this to occur, the student must self-refer no later than the first school day after the violation took place. If a student has not utilized the self-referral option and wants to earn their school award, he or she may apply to earn their school award for a first offense in the areas referenced previously in this video and above in the handbook by utilizing the following process. 1. The student submits written application to the activities coordinator indicating their desire to earn their school award and includes a 15-hour community service plan. 2. Once the application is reviewed and approved, the student may begin serving their community service hours. 3. Upon successful completion of all community service hours, the student will be provided with the school award they would have earned that season. Note, this can be at any point in time later that school year or possibly even the next school year. If you are a varsity athlete, though, please note the following in regards to all conference awards in the FEA. Any OASD student athlete suspended from participation for an athletic contest due to a code violation in the areas of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, performance enhancing substances, vandalism, criminal offense or violation of a city county ordinance having a statutory counterpart, or other serious considered offense unbecoming of a student athlete will not be eligible for all conference recognition in any conference in the sport where the suspension is initiated. Note, a student may get a violation in an area during one season and the suspension carries over into the next. In a situation like that, if a student was an all conference caliber athlete, they would not be eligible in the sport where the suspension was initiated for all conference. However, even though they had to maybe miss part of their next sport, they would be eligible for all conference consideration in the second sport if that code of conduct violation covered two particular sports seasons. As we mentioned before, varsity awards include a first letter award, a second letter award, which is a certificate. A first letter award is a chenille letter. For a third varsity letter, the student athlete gets a plaque. And for a fourth varsity letter, a student gets a second plaque. For a sophomore award for participation, a student gets their numerals of the year they will graduate. A freshman for a first year of satisfactory participation will get their school numerals in the year they'll graduate, and the sophomore will get our Wildcat mascot. On the bottom of page 32 and 33 is information regarding communication. Please note, if you have a question about anything in regards to why your son or daughter made a team, why they're only getting a certain amount of playing time, or maybe the position they're at, don't sit and let it fester. Do the responsible thing. Contact your coach, set up a time to have a meeting and meet to discuss your question or concern. Our coaches are required to meet with you as long as a scheduled time is done. Talking to a coach immediately after a practice or game is not acceptable and will not be done. Again, make sure you're aware of the district's 8-step communication policy. As I mentioned before, our coaches have an open door policy, which is found under number 1. As I mentioned under number 2, your question or concern should be brought directly to the coach. Number 5, communication by all parties will be carried out in a rational, calm, and mature discussion with respect shown to all. If after that initial meeting, your situation is not resolved, a second meeting with the coach and activities coordinator can be requested and would be held if desired. Note, parents can assist the coach and sport or activity by encouraging, supporting, and being a positive role model at home and as a spectator. Note, negative approaches to problem solving do nothing but make the environment for all more disruptive. Note, students, parents, coaches, and school administrators must all work together in an atmosphere of mutual trust fostered by open communication. On pages 33 and 34 is information found regarding the district's sportsmanship expectations. You'll find there, starting on page 33, what spectators are expected to do. Some of the things I just particularly want to mention: cheer for their team, maintain self-control at all times, show respect for opponents, always be positive in the support of their team, respect officials and accept decisions of theirs, and be humble and not boastful in victory and gracious and not bitter in defeat. Also on page 33 and continuing to 34 are some of the things spectators will not be allowed to do. We will not allow you to use negative chants, which focus on mistakes. Participate in chants or behaviors which use obscene or insulting language or gestures, or which mention or imply topics which would tend to be rude, ridicule, taunt, harass, intimidate, humiliate, degrade, or embarrass others in attendance. Spectators will not be allowed to engage in behavior or any action that endangers the safety of participants, spectators, or officials. And spectators will not be allowed to carry or consume any alcohol or controlled substance while on school or athletic property, or attend a school-sponsored function while under the influence of the same. We also have some Fox Valley Association expectations of parents, guests, and other fans. Note, game attendance is a privilege, not a license to verbally assault others or to be obnoxious. Be respectful of game officials, players, coaches, opposing fans, and facilities. Be an exemplary role model by positively supporting teams in every manner possible. Always cheer positively for your team. Never cheer negatively for the opposing team. Again, respect the judgment and strategy of the coaches, players, and officials. And simply be a fan, not a fanatic. Again, failure to abide by any of the previous mentioned spectator or sportsmanship expectations can result in removal from the presence and, in some cases, further disciplinary actions such as removal of attendance privileges for students, parents, or fans for an extended period of time. Again, you are representing your child, your child's program, Oshkosh West, and the city of Oshkosh at all times, and you're attending athletic events. Please be a good ambassador for Oshkosh and be a positive role model. On page 34 are some additional resources I want to make you aware of. The www.foxvalleyassociation.org webpage is a great page to be familiar with. I encourage you to bookmark it. From that website, you can download any of our sports schedules. You can also sign up for a Notify Me app that will inform you whenever a change in venue location, start time, or cancellation is submitted by an athletic director on the online schedule. You will automatically be notified if you sign up under that website for the Notify Me option. The FEAsports.net is a conference website which has a ton of great information regarding all of the varsity sports that the Fox Valley Association participates in. I encourage you to consider following me on Twitter, which is now, I guess, considered X, at OWHS Activities, as I like to share information out about the great things our students are doing. And I also strongly encourage you to follow the Oshkosh West High School webpage for athletics. Basically, that page is our daily newspaper where we tell our story about all the great things our student athletes are doing in each particular sport. You'll notice stories that are written, photos, video that will be posted regularly showing great accomplishments of all the things our students are doing. If you have a expertise in that area or would like to get involved helping to promote the sport or sports your child is involved with, please reach out to that sports head coach and see if you can get involved with being on a part of the Oshkosh West High School Athletic Department website. At this point in time, I'd like you to open your co-curricular handbook up to the WIAA eligibility bulletin. This is a quick reference packet of information for you as a parent, student, athlete to be aware of. This contains a lot of the important rules and regulations that the WIAA has, and it's a great cheat sheet for you in regard to a number of different topics. I'm going to cover a few in particular that I feel are definitely worth mentioning, but realize you are responsible to know and understand all the information found within the eligibility bulletin. If there are any questions that you have regarding anything in there, please reach out to me as I'd be more than happy to help. First, regarding age, a student shall be ineligible for interscholastic competition if they reach their 19th birthday before August 1st of any given school year. As far as residence, a full-time student, whether an adult or not, is eligible for varsity interscholastic competition only at the school within whose attendance boundaries their parents reside, within a given school district, with these additional provisions. Please be sure to familiarize yourself with A through J. I do want to mention one in particular, which is letter C. In the event of divorce or legal separation, whether pending or final, a student's residence at the beginning of the year shall determine eligibility, except in situations involving transfer after the fourth consecutive semester following entry into grade 9. For the purpose of this rule, attendance at one day of school and or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of school year. Under this rule, a student who transfers after the beginning of the school year shall be ineligible at the new school unless approval is granted by the Board of Control in accordance with the transfer and or waiver provisions as described in the WIAA High School Handbook. Transfers. Before I cover this section, I just want you to realize, remember, transferring schools at any time can result in ineligibility in athletics. A full-time student may be afforded up to 8 consecutive semesters of interscholastic eligibility upon entry into grade 9. Transferring schools at any time may result in restrictions being imposed on eligibility, or in some cases, a denial of eligibility. For the purpose of this rule, attendance at one day of school and or attendance at one athletic practice shall determine beginning of the school year. These additional provisions relate to transfer cases. Please familiarize yourself with letters A through L, which are found on pages 2 and 3 of the eligibility bulletin. I'd like to cover a few of the transfer provisions in greater detail. Letter A student who transfers from any school into a member school will be subject to the transfer rules for one calendar year unless the transfer is made necessary by a total and complete change in residence by parents. The calendar year or 365 days will be determined from a student's first day of attendance at the new school. Note, letter B, students entering 9th and or 10th grade at the beginning of the school year and who are within the first 4 consecutive semesters of high school will be afforded unrestricted eligibility, provided all other rules governing student eligibility are met. Letter C, students entering 11th and 12th grade are restricted to non-varsity opportunities for one school year. The calendar year, or 365 days, will be determined from a student's first day of attendance at the new school. Letter F, in the event of divorce or legal separation, whether pending or final, residence at the beginning of the school year shall determine eligibility for students entering 9th and or 10th grade. Letter G, district policies with respect to intra-district transfer do not supersede WIA transfer rules, meaning even if our school district allows a student to transfer from west to north, that will not guarantee a student athletic eligibility. The WIA rule will apply to those transfers in all cases regarding athletic participation. And letter L, no eligibility will be granted for students whose residence within a school district's attendance boundaries, with or without parents, whose attendance at a school has been the result of undue influence or special consideration due to athletic ability or potential on the part of any person, whether or not connected with the school. Again, if you are considering transferring, I strongly encourage you to contact the athletic office to get as much detailed information as you can in advance. Training and conduct. A student athlete must follow their school's code of conduct or training rules on a year-round basis. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Please be sure to familiarize yourself with all of the information under training and conduct from letters A through I. Please note in particular G, any player who, in the judgment of the official, intentionally spits on, strikes, slaps, kicks, pushes, or aggressively physically contacts an official at any time shall be immediately ineligible for competition a minimum of 90 calendar days from the date of confrontation. In addition, the player is ineligible to compete for the first 25% of the next season in that same sport. Meaning, as an athlete, please always keep your emotions under control and respect the judgment and decisions of the officials. Amateur status. This is a very important section of the eligibility handbook. A student athlete must be an amateur in all recognized sports in order to compete in any WIA sport. Please familiarize yourself with letters A through F. A student may not accept, receive, or direct to another reimbursement in any form of salary, cash, which is also including gift cards, or share of game or season proceeds for athletic accomplishments, such as being on a winning team, being selected for the school varsity team, or being a place winner in an individual tournament, etc. B, a student athlete may receive a medal, cup, trophy, or plaque from the sponsoring organization regardless of cost. School mementos valued not more than $200, an award valued not more than $100 retail for participation in an athletic contest in a WIA recognized sport. And a student athlete may retain non-school competition apparel worn by the student as part of the team uniform. Not all personal apparel, but just the uniform. So keep that in mind. C, a student athlete may not receive compensation or benefit directly or indirectly for the use of name, picture, and or personal appearance as an athlete because of ability, potential, or performance as an athlete. Again, please use lots of caution whenever someone wants to use you in any type of promotional event because of you being an athlete, using your name if you're an athlete, or your picture. When in doubt, ask the athletic office. Letter D, a student athlete may not receive free or reduced rates on equipment, apparel, camps, clinics, or instruction, and competitive opportunities that are not identical for any and all interested students. Meaning, if you go to a camp, you have to pay 100% of the cost of the camp. You cannot get a discounted rate because you're a varsity player versus a non-varsity player or any high school student. Also, if you go to buy equipment from a store or apparel or shoes, you cannot get a discount that is not available to any other high school student, whether or not they're involved in a sport or not. Letter E, a student athlete may not be identified with or without permission as an athlete, provide endorsement as an athlete, or appear as an athlete in the promotion of a commercial, advertisement, and/or profit-making event item planner service. Letter F, a student athlete may not participate in school athletics or in school activities outside the school year under a name other than their own name. So again, please be familiar with these amateur status provisions. They are extremely important, as violation of any of them can result in the ability to lose your eligibility for the remainder of your high school career. On the last page of the eligibility bulletin is a section entitled Sports Activities Outside of School. Athletes may compete in not more than 2 non-school competitions with prior school approval during each regular sports season. The contests will not count against the individual maximum for the athlete in that sport. Non-school competition will not be allowed during the respective WIA tournament series in a sport. Violation of this rule results in loss of eligibility for the remainder of the season, including the WIA tournament series, and forfeiture of the 2 non-school opportunities. This non-school participation applies to the same sport during the high school season. As an example, if you're a soccer player and you also want to play in a non-school sponsored soccer game during the high school season, you have to get prior approval from the school and coach to do that, and you'll only be allowed to participate in 2 non-school competitions. Every sport treats the numbering or counting of competitions differently. In a sport like soccer, it's a game. In other sports, it may be an event. So again, when in doubt, ask your coach and the athletic office. So also under sports activities outside of school, familiarize yourself with all the information under A through F. I do want to talk about a couple in particular. Letter A, WI rules do not prevent athletes from practicing with non-school teams or from receiving private instruction during the school season. However, they may not participate officially or unofficially in more than 2 non-school competitions or races, including scrimmages against other teams with school approval. 1. The restriction applies to normal non-school games as well as gimmicks, such as reduced number competition, i.e. 3-on-3 basketball, 6-player soccer, etc. Also, specific skill contests such as punt, pass, and kick, shooting contests such as free throws, three-point, etc., and or fun runs. 2. During the season, athletes may participate in a skills contest with approval of the school. Specific skill contests such as punt, pass, and kick, shooting contests such as free throws, three-point, maybe a drive, chip, and putt, isolate separate skills outside of the traditional competition setting. The skill contests may not include physical contact or extreme fatigue as the actual sport competition. Fun runs are not considered skills contests. There can be no school coach involvement. All other eligibility rules, including amateur status, apply. 3. A student who is a member of a school team during the previous year may not delay reporting for the school team beyond the school's official opening day of practice in order to continue non-school training and or competition, meaning you must report for the first day of your high school season, talk to your coach to see if non-school participation during your high school season will be allowed, and if she or he grants permission, then you can go back and resume non-school training. Letter C, a student athlete or their parents must pay 100% of the fee for specialized training or instruction, such as camps, clinics, and similar programs. D, a student athlete may not be instructed except during the school season of a sport and approved summer contact days by the person who will be their coach in that sport in the following school season. Letter E, a student athlete must not participate in an all-star game or similar contest except for summertime activities, which are A, within the same league or program, or B, in which a team is selected to represent a league in postseason play. Some postseason all-star opportunities may be permitted for 12th graders who have completed high school eligibility in a particular sport. Again, check with your school's activity or athletic director to be certain. Also, on the bottom of the eligibility bulletin, you'll see a parent/athlete rules of eligibility sign-off form. Parents and students, you do not need to sign that as part of your online electronic eligibility or electronic registration. Infinite Campus takes care of that requirement. Again, any questions on anything in the high school eligibility, please see the activities coordinator. I also want to mention something new that's come up, especially in the college setting, the name, image, and likeness. Right now, the WIA is following the NCAA rule to a point, but regarding high school amateur status, even though recent changes allow NCAA athletes to profit from NIL deals, they do not apply to WIA student athletes. Again, they do not apply to WIA student athletes. As we continue with this school year, if any changes come up to the high school NIL name, image, and likeness information, we will share that with you. So for now, the most important piece of information for member schools to share with you as student athletes and parents is that NIL deals are not allowed in education-based athletics and would result in a career-ending violation for a WIA high school student athlete. Again, if there are any specific questions, please reach out to me as I'd be more than happy to help. Some additional resources I want to draw your attention to in the Co-Curricular Handbook, one of which is the WIA Performance Enhancing and Banned Substance List. It's a 2-page document after the high school eligibility bulletin. And note the WIA is against the use of anabolic, androgenic steroids, and other performance-enhancing substances. Banned substances. Do not use drugs that are drugs that are illegal or could be harmful if taken in excess amount. Possession and or use violates the WIA Code of Conduct. Again, if you as a student have been prescribed a banned substance legally by a doctor for a medical condition, that is not a violation of the district's Code of Conduct. However, in these cases, we need parents to contact the school and provide us that information ahead of time so that we are fully aware of that situation. You'll note the section on discouraged substances. Please note schools and coaches may not provide or allow discouraged items in connection to a school program. Again, if you are considering taking any type of substance or vitamin or other item to help potentially your athletic performance, some type of supplement, please be sure to make sure it is not a banned and or discouraged substance, and we strongly encourage you to talk with your doctor. Next section I want to talk about is from the National Federation of High Schools. There's information regarding concussions. It's the Parent/Guardian's Guide to Concussion. This is a 6-page set of information in the resources. I strongly encourage all parents to familiarize yourself with it and all students to be aware of it. What is a concussion? A concussion is a traumatic brain injury that interferes with the normal function of the brain. Concussions were previously referred to as ding or a bell ringer, but this undermines the seriousness of the problem. Any suspected concussion must be taken seriously. An athlete does not need to lose consciousness to suffer a concussion. In fact, less than 5% of concussed athletes suffer a loss of consciousness. As I mentioned before, on page 2 of that concussion resource, coaches are instructed and required by law, when in doubt, sit the athlete out. Please familiarize yourself with the signs and symptoms of a concussion. Note the signs that may be observed by parents, trainers, friends, teachers, or coaches, and symptoms that may be reported by an athlete on page 2. Again, a concussion is a brain injury. If you have any doubt at all that you may have a concussion as a student athlete or as a parent you feel your child may have a concussion, please refer them to our athletic trainer as we take concussions very seriously. We do pre concussion testing in high impact or contact sports in order to keep our students athletes safe. And note, if a student athlete is diagnosed with a concussion, they're going to have to be cleared by an appropriate medical professional to begin a return to play progression. Note, if you're diagnosed with a concussion and once cleared by a medical professional, you will not automatically return to full participation. There will be a gradual return to play protocol that will be followed. The next resource from the National Federation of High Schools is information regarding hazing. Hazing is a big deal. It is not tolerated at all at Oshkosh West High School. If you as a student athlete or as a parent feel your child or you feel you as a student you are being subjected to hazing, please report that immediately to your coach and or the athletic director and or someone in the school office. The National Federation of High Schools defines hazing as any humiliating or dangerous activity expected of a student to belong to a group, regardless of their willingness to participate. Some practices associated with high school hazing carry the potential for serious bodily harm or even death. These practices may include tattooing, piercing, head shaving, branding, sleep deprivation, physical punishment, consuming unreasonable or unacceptable foods or beverages, being deprived of personal hygiene, and or inappropriate sexual behavior. Again, if you have any concerns or any belief that you are being subjected to hazing, please report it immediately. It is illegal and will not be tolerated at Oshkosh West High School. As a parent of a student athlete, we also have included the NFHF positive sport parenting self-assessment test that we encourage you to honestly take and answer questions 1 through 10, score yourself, come up with your total, and then also see where your total measures up on the parent self-assessment results. Again, we all want to be successful. We all want to be the best we can be. However, when we compete, there is a winner and a loser. The important thing to remember is, are we improving? Are we learning life lessons? We all need to be positive role models, be gracious in victory, and humble, and accept defeat as gracious as well. If you are a student athlete and or parent that has aspirations of competing in athletics beyond high school, you need to be aware of the NCAA Eligibility Center. This is an organization that has information for parents and student athletes to ensure that you stay on the right academic track if you have a desire or potential opportunity to compete in an NCAA Division I or NCAA Division II institution. There are many NCAA Division III institutions as well, and some of that information in the Eligibility Center may or may not apply. With questions regarding the Eligibility Center, please feel free to reach out to your guidance counselor first and or myself in the athletic office. But if you have, again, aspirations of participating in Division I or II athletics, it's imperative that you know the academic core requirements that are in place for you in order to have full eligibility when you reach college or attend a university after your high school career. If you are a transfer student, meaning you are transferring to Oshkosh West from a different school, it is imperative that we know your situation because all transfer students are considered ineligible until approved for full participation. Please feel free to reach out to me at the phone number or email address on the screen. Also, be sure to inform your coach as well. Some information for student athletes and parents about locker rooms. The Oshkosh West Athletic Department does supply lockers and locks in the varsity athletic rooms for our student athletes. The expectation is that student athletes will lock up their valuables using our locks. Again, when thefts happen in locker rooms, the number one issue is a student not locking up their items or valuables, even if they've left for just a minute or two. Unfortunately, This is an issue that happens each and every school year, but you as a student athlete have the ability to control that by locking up your valuables. Also, when you are done with your sports season, whether you are going to participate in the next sports season or not, the expectation is that you will clean out your locker when your high school or when that specific sports season is done. You will be issued a new locker or possibly the same locker the next sports season, but everything needs to be removed so that we can clean out the lockers and also make sure we have enough lockers available for the next season. Parents, we strongly encourage you to get involved with the Oshkosh West Booster Club. They do a number of fundraisers throughout the year, as well as staff the concession stand for all of the athletic events that we sell concessions for. The expectation is that each sport that is provided funding will be assigned a number of dates to work in the concession stand. All you're being asked to do is volunteer your time. It is not difficult. It's a lot of fun. So when you get that email or phone call from your coach saying we need to work these different concession stand nights, please do your part and sign up. We also have a sport rep for each program that communicates information from the Booster Club to all parents in that program. If this is something that interests you, please reach out to your head coach. And the Booster Club has meetings that are open to the general public the first Wednesday of each month, starting in September through the end of May. Those meetings are at 6:30 p.m. in the O room, and we strongly encourage you to come and hear what's going on and get involved in the Booster Club. That is going to wrap up our online co-curricular handbook presentation for the 23-24 school year. Again, my name is Brad Jadarski. I'm the activities coordinator here at Oshkosh West. I thank you for following along. Remember, you are responsible as a parent and student athlete for all of the material found within the district's co-curricular handbook, as well as all WIA rules and regulations. If there are any questions at any time, please reach out to me as I'm more than happy to help. Go Wildcats and make it a great year.